Hi, it's Michael Plant here. Today we're going to use PhotoLab to select images. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm actually in the process of editing 2 books of my own work. And I need to be able to get them into some form of cohesive whole that enables me to make the books that I want to make. And I'm using PhotoLab to edit and make my initial selections. And then once I've done that, I'm going to be using it to process all my images. So it makes sense to be using PhotoLab for the initial selections and achieving the feel that I want from my 2 projects. Work through PhotoLab to see how we can actually make those image selections. There's a couple of ways of doing this within PhotoLab. We've got the photo library and the customize section. The issue is I want to be able to see my thumbnails as I'm scrolling through, but I also want to be able to see a big image so I can review the image. And I don't necessarily want to compromise on this. So there's a couple of things that we're going to have to do to set up our PhotoLab to make this happen. At the moment, I'm using a small project, which has got in the vicinity of 600 images. And I'm using projects because they can then come from multiple different folders. And the reason for this is I've got a project on Henley Royal Regatta and a project on the City of London that I need to turn into something that's cohesive. These projects are going to need to be edited down into something that makes it a cohesive whole. I've got my entire archive dating back to 2004 on external hard drives. My City of London images I know are coming from multiple folders. To give you an idea, within here I've got all the images that are contained within this folder will actually have been added to my projects folder. I was working on this project between 2015 and 2019, so it's about 4 years, and each month I was going out making images, and I need to be able to access them in all the images from each folder and then added them to the project file for that project. And now I will over time be able to go through that, and as you can see here, the total number of images in this project is 32,000 images. That's an awful lot of images I need to get through to make this work. To do that, I'm going to then use PhotoLab's features of star ratings and or labels. Now, for this demonstration, what I've done is I've taken all the star ratings off this folder and I've actually added labels to the images that had star ratings. So you can see I've already pre-selected some to start with. Now, there's 2 ways of working with PhotoLab. I can have everything here turned off with the ticks, or I can have them all turned on with the ticks, so that I can, if I've got, so for instance, at the moment, there's no star ratings in this whole folder. So if I turn the no star ratings off, everything disappears, because everything that is still turned on has a star rating. Turn the no star ratings back on, they turn up again. Now, if I select just one picture, give it a 1 star, select a second picture, give it a 2 star. If I then come here using this star rating system and turn the no stars off, everything disappears but for the 1 and 2. I can actually edit the images once I've made my initial selection. I can then choose which ones had 1 star, which had 2, all the way up to 5. I've found that I prefer working this way with everything turned on. I can then turn it off as I need to remove layers of images as I'm working. I'm then able to reveal the better images as I go through a edit. The higher the number of stars, the closer that image will be to picked. And once I've picked an image from it, then I will give it a picked image rating. That's the image that I've decided I want to work with. It's really quite a simple process. I tend not to use the labels unless I'm trying to filter it for, so if I'm thinking about a subcategory, or in this case, what I've done is I've used the labels to show what was a 1 star and what was a 2 star beforehand. I can also click on something and pick an image based on a color. For instance, these were the ones that had 3 stars on before. Now I could add a 3-star back to it, and I could then filter it with those ratings. Only problem is I still can't see my image big. So in PhotoLab, we have the ability to undock the image browser. Now, the minute this image browser is undocked, you can see I've now got the big image behind, and I've got a set of thumbnails. This, which I've now got free, I can then drag and put on the other monitor that I have. My main monitor has big image. My other monitor, which you can't see because it's on the other, has the thumbnails sitting here. How I would then set up the photo library is remove this by just sliding, and I've got the biggest size image. I've got my metadata all showing up here with my thumbnails on the other screen. That works great. I can then create that as a workflow. However, in PhotoLab, there's no ability to create that as a workspace in the photo library. Within PhotoLab, I've also might, as I'm going through something, decide that I might want to give it a quick retouch or process the raw file a little to see if there's some information. For instance, the polka dots on the mannequin's legs, they look a little bit overexposed. I might want to jump into customize. Now the customize workspace, because this has been undocked, is still sitting on the second monitor, but I might not be happy with how this is working, because all of a sudden, if I'm going to edit in this area, which is the customize, I don't have the EXIF data that I want to know about. To do something about that, I'll come up here, click on this little dialog box, see how I've got my palette, and I can then add my EXIF data into this area. You can now see this was made on a Leica M9 with a Summicron lens, a rating of 3. It can tell me when it was made, etc. I've got the information to the left. I've also got my exposure developing section to the right, and I'll bring it back in, my thumbnails on the second monitor. Take it back out. Now, if I want to then look at this while I'm doing this, I can quickly just make a quick selection, grab the 3 mannequins, make an exposure adjustment, bring in my highlights, and I can then hover my cursor over and I can see what's happening with the exposure, and I can go, oh, that's good. However, I want to bring out my shadows a bit so I can see some detail in the dresses in the windows. Can get a quick idea of what's possible in an image. Make another quick adjustment, and I've always liked this image with this because it's very similar, and I want to bring in the highlights a little and bring the shadows down a bit so I can bring up some detail information there, so I can start making some quick changes while I'm processing. I can then go back to, because I'm now in the edit or in the customize module, but I still have the ability to look at my thumbnails on my second monitor, and as I use my arrow keys, because it's on the second monitor, I can switch very quickly between multiple images and see which one I prefer. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye.